Sebahagian daripada Persekutuan Malaysia, izinkan saya paraphrase, sebagai antara yang menubuhkan Persekutuan Malaysia.
Selama sejak merdeka 58 tahun ini, terlalu ramai pemimpin-pemimpin Sabah dan Sarawak. Pemimpin silih berganti, ketua silih berganti, tetapi membunggah kekayaan yang luar biasa.
The flag is more than colored cloth. It is the ultimate emblem of identity and sovereignty. And in Sabah, it carries exceptional emotional and political weight. Sabah's own story shows why. 3 official state flags since 1963 chart a long negotiation between federal unity and local pride. In a hypothetical referendum today, those histories and identities would collide in a vivid test of belonging. The Malaysian national flag, Jalur Gemilang, would symbolize national integration and federal loyalty, appealing to those who prize security, economic stability, and the protection Malaysia provides against external claims like the Sulu Sultanate dispute. Its core supporters would likely be federal civil servants, citizens benefiting from national subsidies, and voters who see the Federation as the best guarantee of peace and prosperity. The current Sabah state flag, the Sembilan Bintang, would embody Sabahan first sentiment and the drive for greater autonomy. Its Mount Kinabalu motif and blue shades signaling unity and peace rooted in local heritage. It would rally indigenous communities, urban middle-class nationalists, and those demanding full implementation of the Malaysia Agreement 1963, especially amid grievances that Sabah's resources enrich the Federation more than the state itself. Historical or separatist flags would capture a small but passionate vote, whether for the 1963 Old Glory, which evokes the original terms of union, or for entirely new designs proposed by online secessionists. These symbols resonate with people who feel the federal project has eroded Sabah's original rights, and who flirt with outright independence despite serious security and diplomatic risks. Geopolitics and identity politics would shape the final choice. The referendum would pit Malaysia's nation-building narrative against a resurgent Sabahan nationalism, while economic calculations, federal subsidies versus local resource control, add another layer. The ever-present Philippine claim to Sabah would weigh heavily, nudging many voters towards solutions that stay within Malaysia's security umbrella. The likely outcome? A plurality for the Sembilan Bintang flag, reflecting strong popular demand for greater autonomy under MA 63, balanced by a substantial vote for the Jalur Gemilang. More than a decision about fabric, such a result would reveal Sabah's evolving identity, seeking deeper self-rule while remaining anchored to the Malaysian Federation. For a substantial portion of Sabah's electorate, Malaysia's red-blue-yellow Jalur Gemilang represents far more than a decorative emblem. It is the living pledge of national unity, security, and economic well-being. This attachment is anchored first in demography and policy. Roughly 67.6% of Sabah's population are Bumiputra, Kadazan Dusun, Bajau, Marut, and other indigenous groups, whose social and economic prospects are interwoven with federal affirmative action programs such as preferential university admissions, small business grants, and subsidized housing. Nationwide opinion data echo this trust in the Federation. An IRI public opinion survey in 2022 found that 67% of Malaysians believed the country was heading in the right direction, offering a broad, if indirect benchmark for Sabahans who see their own future tied to Malaysia's. Security considerations give the Jalur Gemilang an equally powerful appeal. Sabah's accession to Malaysia in 1963 was shaped by the Cobbled Commission's emphasis on collective defense, and those arguments remain vivid today. Chinese maritime incursions in the South China Sea and the lingering territorial claim by the Sulu Sultanate, which Manila occasionally invokes, reinforce the sense that Sabah's best guarantee of territorial integrity lies in the Malaysian Federation's armed forces, Coast Guard, and diplomatic clout. Federal troop deployments, coast watch stations, and intelligence sharing all signal that protection is inseparable from the national flag. Economic interdependence strengthens this loyalty. Billions of ringgit in federal investment, major road and port upgrades, subsidies on rice, fuel, and electricity, nationwide healthcare and disaster relief funds regularly reach the state, reminding voters that daily prosperity and long-term resilience flow from Kuala Lumpur's coffers. National stimulus spending after the pandemic, as well as quick federal aid following Typhoon Nalgai and other storms, provided tangible proof that Sabah's welfare is bound to Malaysia's fiscal capacity. The result is a durable, pro-federation voting bloc. Federal civil servants and their families, members of the security forces, business owners dependent on nationwide subsidies and markets, and rural communities that rely on subsidized staples and healthcare. For these Sabahans, casting a ballot for the Jalur Gemilang in any future referendum would not merely affirm patriotic feeling. It would be a conscious choice for political stability, economic continuity, and guaranteed defense. In their view, the Malaysian national flag is both the emotional symbol of belonging and the practical shield ensuring that Sabah remains securely anchored in a larger, more protective nation. The Sembilan Bintang 9 points flag, formally adopted in 1988, is far more than a colorful banner. It is the distilled emblem of Sabahan First pride and identity. Its 2 bands of zircon blue, peace, and icicle blue, unity, frame a stylized silhouette of Mount Kinabalu, the highest peak in Southeast Asia and the spiritual heartland of the Kadazan Dusun people, who account for roughly 19.3% of Sabah's population. To many residents, this mountain represents the unbroken link between land, culture, and ancestry. By placing Kinabalu at the center of the design, the flag asserts that Sabah's heritage and political voice deserve recognition within, yet distinct from, the Malaysian Federation. That cultural symbolism has become inseparable from Sabah's modern political struggle for autonomy. The Malaysia Agreement 1963, MA63, which brought Sabah and Sarawak into Malaysia, promised wide self-government and an equitable share of resource revenues. Yet decades of centralized control have left many Sabahans feeling shortchanged despite abundant oil and gas wealth. Politicians and civil society leaders increasingly argue that true development, better roads, modern schools, and jobs that keep young people at home requires local control over taxes and natural resources. Flying the Sembilan Bintang has thus evolved into a visible demand to honor MA63, a way to insist that Kuala Lumpur respect the state's original rights and dignity. This dual meaning, cultural pride fused with political demand, shapes the Sembilan Bintang's strongest base of support. Its natural constituency includes local nationalists, urban middle-class voters frustrated by uneven development, and indigenous groups seeking stronger cultural recognition and fair economic participation. Grassroots organizations, student movements, and church and village leaders frequently rally around the flag at festivals and autonomy marches, transforming it into a living petition for fair treatment. Even many Sabahans who value the national union now view the Sembilan Bintang as the rightful everyday flag of their state, a declaration that Sabah's identity is neither a province of Kuala Lumpur nor a mere afterthought in Malaysian politics. A third, more emotionally charged and less mainstream camp in any Sabah flag referendum would rally around historical emblems or outright separatist banners, each carrying its own story of unfinished nation-building, political grievance, and long-suppressed aspirations. Though far smaller than the blocs favoring either the Malaysian national flag or the current Sembilan Bintang, these options speak to enduring debates about how Sabah joined Malaysia and how that union has evolved.
Kita telah minta tindakan segera. Bukan saja PEN Borneo yang perlu diselesaikan, tetapi juga jalan-jalan yang rosak. Kita sudah minta tindakan segera, dan saya percaya rakan-rakan kerajaan negeri, sebahagiannya kita serahkan sepenuhnya kepada kerajaan negeri, sebahagiannya ikut peraturan biasa keuangan, dan saya ingin memberi jaminan bahwa ini kerajaan perpaduan yang serius dan kita bertekad untuk menyelesaikan masalah ini dalam keadaan yang segera.
The best-known historical choice is the 1963 to 1981 Old Glory flag, a striking design of a blue upper field over red with a white canton. This was the flag that flew when Sabah entered the Malaysian Federation in 1963 under the Malaysia Agreement, MA63, which envisioned Sabah, Sarawak, and Malaya as equal partners with extensive autonomy over immigration, natural resources, and taxation. Over the decades, constitutional amendments and expanding federal powers eroded those guarantees. Supporters of Old Glory view its revival as a political reset button, a call to reclaim the true federalism originally promised. In their eyes, raising the old flag would pressure Kuala Lumpur to honor long-delayed commitments on revenue sharing and self-government, making it both a historical homage and a contemporary political demand. A smaller but more radical faction would go further, questioning Sabah's place in Malaysia altogether. Some nostalgically point to the British North Borneo flag, the emblem of Sabah under colonial administration, as a neutral starting point for reimagining sovereignty. Others propose entirely new separatist designs, stylized versions of the state crest or modern minimalist symbols that would proclaim outright independence. These groups are driven by deep economic grievances. Despite contributing billions in oil and gas revenues, Sabah remains among Malaysia's least developed states. They also invoke the perceived failure of MA 63, arguing that Sabah never truly received the autonomy it bargained for. Online forums and community discussions sometimes echo bold claims that Sabah can stand on its own 2 feet, citing rich natural resources and a strategic location astride key global shipping lanes. One widely shared comment captures their sentiment. Malaysia's rot of centralization and corruption leaves independence as the only path to honest governance and equitable growth. Despite the passion of these voices, serious geopolitical and security hurdles remain. The Philippines continues to assert a historical claim to Sabah, a dispute reignited in 2022 by an international arbitration award of roughly US $15 billion to heirs of the Sulu Sultanate. Any secessionist move would likely intensify this claim and invite other external pressures, making independence a high-risk gamble. Together, these historical and separatist flag options form a symbolic minority current, a reminder of Sabah's complex colonial past and of the discontent that lingers when promised autonomy is delayed. While unlikely to command a majority, their presence in a referendum would test the depth of Sabah's attachment to Malaysia, signaling unresolved questions about identity, governance, and the meaning of the 1963 pact that created the modern Malaysian Federation. Yet the leap from rhetoric to reality is formidable. Geopolitical risks loom large. Foremost, the Sulu Sultanate's dormant but legally persistent claim to Sabah. This claim flared in 2022 when a European arbitration court awarded roughly $15 billion to heirs of the Sulu royal family, a ruling that, while unenforceable in Malaysia, underscores the legal and diplomatic headaches independence could invite. A standalone Sabah could also become a magnet for great power rivalry, with neighboring states and outside powers vying for influence in a territory sitting astride major sea routes and rich hydrocarbon fields. The absence of a strong national defense force would leave a breakaway Sabah vulnerable to external interference and internal instability, especially in a region already riven by piracy and transnational crime. The core support for these historical or separatist flags remains small compared with those favoring either the Malaysian Jalur Gemilang or the current Sabah state flag. It consists mainly of hardcore autonomists, secession activists, and citizens with long memories of federal neglect, including some younger Sabahans inspired by global movements for self-determination. While these groups would struggle to win a majority, their activism would shape the political debate, keeping alive issues of historical justice, revenue rights, and genuine autonomy. In a hypothetical referendum, these historical or separatist flags would almost certainly finish behind the Malaysian national flag and the current Sabah flag. But their symbolic power is significant. They would act as a constant reminder that, for many Sabahans, the story of federation remains unfinished, and that questions of sovereignty, fairness, and identity are far from settled. A referendum on Sabah's flag would ultimately go far beyond the surface question of colors and emblems. It would crystallize a deeper debate over federalism, autonomy, and identity that has defined East Malaysia's relationship with the Federation since 1963. Voters would not simply be choosing a banner. They would be signaling how they see Sabah's place within Malaysia and how strongly they wish to reclaim the political and economic promises of the Malaysia Agreement 1963, MA 63. The most likely outcome is that the current Sabah state flag, the Sembilan Bintang, would win a plurality rather than an overwhelming mandate. Its Mount Kinabalu emblem and Sabahan first meaning align with growing calls for greater autonomy and fairer resource control. making it the natural vessel for local pride and the push to fully implement MA63. Yet a large, resilient minority would still back the Malaysian national flag, the Jalur Gemilang, reflecting the enduring appeal of national unity, federal subsidies, and security guarantees. This split verdict would speak volumes. Sabahans are seeking more room to steer their own future while remaining within Malaysia's protective embrace. The vote, in short, would not settle the question of identity but illuminate it, showing a society determined to balance local empowerment with national cohesion in an era of shifting geopolitics and rising regional stakes. If you liked the video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for deep analysis of contemporary issues.